In 1955, a sliced white loaf from the co-op cost 7p halfpenny, and that one loaf was expected to feed a family of 5 through 3 meals and a packed lunch. Your Nan stood at the kitchen table with the breadboard and a butter dish, and she made lunch in under 2 minutes. No recipe book, no fuss. There is one sandwich on this list that pairs sliced tomato with sweetened condensed milk, and Nigella Lawson herself called the combination extraordinary when she wrote about her grandmother making it. Most modern food writers refuse to believe it until they bite into one. The supermarkets now sell pre-packed sandwiches at £4 each, full of ingredients she would have called peculiar. She did the same job for tuppence. Today we count down 25 cheap British sandwiches your Nan made every lunchtime, now almost entirely forgotten. Number 25, bread and dripping sandwich. She kept the dripping bowl in the larder, covered with a saucer, the brown jelly settled at the bottom, and the white fat layered on top. After Sunday's roast came out of the oven, she poured the meat juices into a basin and let them set for 2 days. The National Food Survey of 1953 recorded that beef dripping appeared in over 60% of working-class British kitchens, often eaten 3 or 4 times a week on bread. She would scrape down through the white into the dark brown jelly underneath, spread it thick on a slice of white bread, and crack black pepper across the top. The smell of the larder when the dripping bowl came out was the smell of Sunday still living on into Tuesday. Heston Blumenthal now charges £18 for a deconstructed dripping toast at his restaurant in Knightsbridge. She made it for the cost of a saved spoonful of fat, what modern chefs now call umami. Your Nan called the brown bit at the bottom of the bowl. Number 24, sugar sandwich. 2 slices of white bread, a thin smear of margarine pushed right to the crusts, and white granulated sugar tipped from the bag and pressed flat with the second slice. She made it for you when you came in from school in your soaked anorak, set it on a side plate next to a glass of cold milk, and watched you eat it, standing by the back door. By 1962, household sugar consumption in Britain had reached an average of £19 per person per year, much of it eaten exactly like this. The sugar half melted into the marg by the time you took the second bite, and the texture went from gritty to syrupy in the space of a minute. We now microwave plastic-wrapped breakfast bars at the kitchen counter, sliced and packaged by a factory in the Midlands. She did the same job with 2 ingredients and 1 minute, and the kitchen smelled of nothing more dangerous than bread. Every grandchild in Britain remembers exactly which kitchen they ate one in. Number 23, crisp sandwich, the original. A bag of Smith's ready salted, crushed in the bag with the heel of the hand until the crisps were broken into shards, then tipped onto buttered white bread and pressed flat with the top slice. Smith's invented the crisp packet with the little blue twist of salt in 1920, and by the late 50s, a packet cost 4p at the corner shop. She made you one when there was nothing else in the cupboard, and you'd been sent home from school with a cold. The crunch was the loudest thing in the kitchen at 3:30, sharp against the soft bread, the butter cold against the warm chip. Pret-a-manger now sells a crisp sandwich for £4.25, and calls it a heritage item. Working-class kitchens were running multi-sensory experiments 30 years before any food scientist thought to write the word texture down. This wasn't desperation, this was British engineering with a paper bag and a slice of mother's pride. Number 22, piccalilli and cold meat sandwich. Monday lunchtime, the leftover joint from Sunday sliced thin against the grain on the wooden board, slathered with bright yellow piccalilli straight from the jar at the back of the pantry. She bought a jar at the start of every month from Sainsbury's for 1 shilling and 3p in 1958, and it lasted until the next pay packet came in on a Friday. The mustard, the turmeric, the malt vinegar bit through the cold beef fat the way no modern condiment manages on a supermarket shelf today. The color alone made the plate look like a proper meal, even when the meat was the last gray scrap from the bone of Sunday's joint. We now buy ready-made chutney in tall glass jars at the supermarket, manufactured in factories in Norfolk and shipped to Tesco shelves nationwide. Every Monday lunch in working-class Britain ran on this principle for 50 solid years. The leftover joint was never a leftover. It was Monday's lunch, waiting for its dressing. If any of these are taking you back to your Nan's kitchen, hit subscribe. The sandwiches further down are stranger and cheaper than anything in a Pret today. Number 21, banana and brown sugar sandwich. Sliced banana laid in a single layer on buttered white bread, demerara sugar scattered across the top in a generous handful, the second slice pressed down until the sugar started to dissolve into the fruit. The Ministry of Food's wartime cookery films made bananas a symbol of peace returning, and by the early 50s, they were back in greengrocers across the country at 3p each. She wrapped it in greaseproof paper and put it in your tin lunchbox before the school bell rang at 8:45. By the time you opened it at 12:15, the sugar had liquefied into a sticky brown caramel running down the side of the banana and into the corners of the box. We now follow YouTube tutorials for banana caramel desserts that take 40 minutes, a blowtorch, and a ramekin from John Lewis. She did it before breakfast with a knife and a paper twist, standing at the kitchen table in her housecoat. 3 ingredients, no oven, perfect every single time. Number 20, condensed milk sandwich. A spoonful of Nestlé's sweetened condensed milk straight from the tin, spread on white bread like the world's thickest icing. The tin sitting in the cupboard with 2 triangular holes punched in the top with a key. A tin cost 9p in 1956 and lasted 3 weeks if she rationed it, longer if she kept it cold. The skin of the condensed milk where it had touched the air was the part you scraped off and ate first, sticky on the spoon, sweet enough to make your back teeth ache. She gave them to you on the walk to school in January when the windows of the bus were iced on the inside. We now buy energy bars at £1.50 each, marketed for children, full of brown rice syrup and a list of ingredients no human has ever heard of. She delivered the same calories for 2p in a square of greaseproof paper. It was the most loved sandwich on the entire street. Number 19, cheese and pickled onion sandwich, crumbly white Lancashire from the corner shop, sliced thick with the cheese wire, and a whole pickled onion from the jar cut into discs and laid across the top in overlapping circles. By 1959, pickled onions appeared in 9 out of 10 British pantries, according to the Women's Institute pantry surveys of that decade. Your dad assembled it himself standing at the kitchen counter on a Saturday lunchtime, the radio on low, the football coming up at 3, the vinegar bit through the fat of the cheese, and the onion crunched against the soft bread the moment your teeth went in. We now call this a deconstructed ploughman's on a gastropub menu in Hackney, served on sourdough at £12.50 with a ramekin of chutney on the side. It was the working man's lunch, assembled in 90 seconds, eaten standing up at the counter with the back door open, and it tasted better than anything they put on a wooden board today in any pub in Shoreditch. Notice what these sandwiches have in common so far. Every single one was built around what was already in the kitchen. The dripping from yesterday's roast, the crisps from the corner shop, the piccalilli from the back of the cupboard, none of it bought specially. Nothing went to waste. The fridge dictated the menu, not the menu the fridge. And the next stretch of this list pushes that idea even further. Number 18, salad cream and lettuce sandwich. A single soft butterhead lettuce leaf from the back garden, washed under the cold tap and patted on a tea towel, laid flat on buttered mother's pride, with a generous zigzag of Heinz salad cream across the top. A bottle of salad cream cost 1 shilling and 9p in 1958, and Heinz had been making it in Wigan since 1914, specifically for the British palate. The cream was tangy enough to make the bare lettuce taste like a proper sandwich filling. She made them for the Bridge Club on Wednesday afternoons, cut into triangles, arranged on a Pyrex plate with a paper doily underneath. We now pay £4.50 for a chicken Caesar at lunch, and pretend we are eating something better. She turned the cheapest greens in the garden into something a child would actually eat for the price of a single fluid ounce of bottled cream. That bottle still sits in the door of fridges across the north today, and the recipe has not changed. Number 17, tinned salmon and vinegar sandwich. A tin of John West pink salmon, drained, mashed with a fork in a saucer, with the soft bones still in, a splash of malt vinegar from the chip shop bottle, spread thick on buttered bread. She insisted on the bones because she said they were where the calcium lived, and she had heard it from the district nurse who came round once a fortnight. A tin cost 1 shilling and 2p in 1957 and made 4 sandwiches for Sunday tea. The vinegar cut the oiliness of the cheap tinned fish and gave it a brightness that mayonnaise would have buried. She brought them out on the best plates when the vicar's wife came round for tea, and nobody knew the salmon had cost less than the milk. We now call this poke or sashimi grade and queue at glass-fronted cafes in town to be served it on a plate of brown rice. She delivered more omega-3 for a shilling than the supplement industry now charges £30 a month to replicate. Special enough for visitors, cheap enough for every week. Number 16, mashed potato sandwich. Cold leftover mash from last night's tea, spread thick on white bread with the back of a spoon. Salted heavily, sometimes with a smear of HP sauce dragged across the top in a single brown stripe. By 1961, the average British household ate potatoes 6 days a week, and the National Food Survey listed mash as the most common evening starch by a margin of 4 to 1. She handed you one in your gloved hand on the walk to the bus stop in January, the bread soft, the potato cold, the sauce sharp, the wind cutting across the estate at 6 degrees below freezing. Modern dietitians now recoil at carbohydrate on carbohydrate, write articles in the Sunday papers, charge £50 for a private consultation in Harley Street. In a freezing kitchen at 7 in the morning with a paper round to do before school, this was the warmest cold thing in the entire world. The science came along later. The instinct was already there in her hands. Number 15, Marmite and Cucumber Sandwich. A whisper of Marmite scraped across buttered white bread with the tip of a knife, paper-thin cucumber slices laid in overlapping discs, salted lightly to draw the water out before the top slice went on. A jar of Marmite cost a shilling at the grocer's in 1955 and lasted a full calendar year in the back of the cupboard with the lid screwed on tight. The salty yeast hit the back of the tongue at the same moment the cool cucumber crunched, and the contrast woke the whole sandwich up. She made them for the Bowls Club picnic, packed in a Tupperware box with a tea towel folded over the top, the box still cool when it came out at 3. Modern food magazines now call this a sweet and savory revelation, and run it as a feature every July with a photograph styled by someone in Hackney. It took French chefs another 40 years to write the principle down. Your Nan was already plating it on a doily for the Bowls Club in 1957. Number 14, Marmalade and Cheese Sandwich. Sharp cheddar from the corner shop, sliced thin, laid on white bread spread with bitter Seville orange marmalade, Robertson's Golden Shred, or Frank Cooper's Oxford. The Ministry of Food's kitchen front broadcasts mentioned this combination during rationing as a way to stretch dairy and deliver vitamin C in one parcel. District nurses doing the rounds of Sheffield estates in the early 50s recommended it to mothers of growing children for what they called a proper balanced lunch. The protein, the fat, the bitter sugar, all in one slice. The marmalade caught against the sharp tang of the cheese, and the bitterness of the rind made the whole thing taste grown up. We now spend £9 on a cheese and chutney plate at a pub in town that arrives with 2 crackers and a micro herb on the side. She made it for 4p on a Tuesday for a child who needed feeding before the bus came. The trick was the bitterness. Sweet jam will not work. It has to be the kind that hits the back of the jaw. Number 13, Egg and Cress Sandwich. Hard-boiled eggs from the morning's pan, peeled under the cold tap and mashed with a fork in a teacup, mixed with salad cream and a thick layer of mustard cress grown on the kitchen windowsill in a saucer of damp cotton wool. The cress was ready in 7 days flat from a packet of seeds costing tuppence at Woolworths. Every working-class kitchen had a windowsill garden running year-round, producing fresh greens in February when the shops had absolutely nothing green to sell. The scratch of the fork against the inside of the teacup as she mashed the eggs was the sound of mid-morning preparations for the church coffee gathering at 11, the kettle whistling on the stove behind her. We now follow elaborate online videos on growing microgreens, ordering hydroponic kits from Lakeland, and grow lights from Amazon. She grew the same thing on a saucer for a week's worth of windowsill light. 2p in seeds, a whole jar of sandwiches for the church coffee morning. Number 12, Beetroot and Cheese Sandwich. Pickled beetroot from the jar, sliced thick in dark crimson rounds, with crumbled Wensleydale or Caerphilly, on bread spread with proper butter rather than margarine. By the time you opened your lunchbox at the school playground, the vinegar from the beetroot had soaked pink into the bread in soft circles around each slice. It was a feature, not a flaw. Children traded them in the playground because the pink color alone made them feel like something special on a gray Monday. The Women's Institute Pickle and Preserve Handbook of 1953 included 16 variations on pickled beetroot, all of them tested in member kitchens across Yorkshire and Lancashire. The smell of the open jar in the pantry, sharp malt vinegar laced with peppercorns and bay, was the smell of every Sunday tea time in the back parlour. We now pay £7 for a goat's cheese and beetroot salad in a glass-fronted cafe and call it Mediterranean. She did it for 4p in a tin lunchbox on the number 42 bus to Barnsley Comprehensive on a wet Tuesday. Pink bread was not a defect, it was a treasure map drawn in vinegar. Look at what these sandwiches keep proving. The cheaper the ingredients, the more skill the sandwich actually required. Anyone can put smoked salmon between 2 slices and call it lunch. It takes real judgment to balance a whisper of Marmite against the water content of a cucumber, or to know exactly how much vinegar to splash into tinned salmon. These were not lunches assembled from a recipe. They were assembled from 40 years of standing at that table. Number 11. Cold chip butty. Last night's leftover chips, cold from the larder, between 2 slices of soft white bread spread with butter, finished with a generous shake of malt vinegar from the brown bottle. By 1955, fish and chips accounted for 1 in 3 British evening meals, and the leftovers became the next day's lunch as a matter of routine across the north. The bread softened against the cold potato, and the vinegar woke the whole thing up at the first bite. Whole families were fed lunch on the leftovers from one supper, the chip pan washed out and put away, the newspaper wrapping folded for the fire. Modern street food markets now sell chip butties for £6.50 in a paper cone with a sprig of rosemary tucked in. She called it Tuesday lunch and never thought twice about it. The vinegar bottle on the kitchen table did the work that an entire industry of condiment marketers now pretends to do. Zero waste before zero waste was a movement, a campaign, or a hashtag. Number 10. Spam fritter sandwich. A slice of spam dipped in flour and water batter, fried in lard in the heavy iron pan until the coating crackled and went mahogany at the edges, then slapped between buttered bread with a heavy hand of HP sauce. Spam arrived in Britain through Lend-Lease in 1941 and never left, becoming the cheapest reliable protein in working-class cupboards for the next 30 years. A tin cost 1 shilling and threepence in 1956 and made 6 fritters from a single block. The hiss of the batter hitting the lard was the sound of Saturday lunch in 1,000 kitchens at exactly 12:30. Every kitchen on the street doing the same thing within 10 minutes of each other. We now microwave plant-based ready meals at £4 each and call ourselves modern. She turned a flat tinned slice into something that crackled, steamed, and dripped sauce down your wrist onto the plate. Spam is still on the shelf at Tesco today, ignored by everyone under 50, eaten by everyone over 70. Number 9. Tomato sandwich on dripping toast. Vine-ripened tomatoes from the back garden in late August, sliced thick on the wooden board, salted heavily, laid on bread that had been toasted under the grill and then spread with cold beef dripping rather than butter. By 1962, over 40% of British households grew at least 3 tomato plants in the back garden or allotment, according to the National Allotment Society's survey of that year. The hot toast melted the dripping into the tomato juices, the salt drew out more juice, and the whole thing ran red down your wrists and onto the lino. Eaten standing over the kitchen sink in August, the back door open, the smell of warm tomato leaves drifting in from the garden. This was the taste of the entire summer in one bite. We now pay £5.20 for a heritage tomato bruschetta in a wine bar with a candle on the table. She picked the tomato off the vine, wiped it on her pinny, and had it on the toast in under 3 minutes. Summer never tasted better than over that sink. Number 8. Brown sauce and bacon sandwich. 2 rashers of streaky bacon from the butcher's at 7p a quarter pound, fried in their own fat in the iron pan until the edges curled and crackled with a heavy zigzag of HP sauce on bread that had been fried briefly in the bacon pan after the rashers came out. The bread soaked up the rendered bacon fat and turned a deep mahogany brown, crisp at the edges, soft in the middle. Saturday mornings in working-class Britain smelled of this and nothing else from 1945 right through until colour television arrived in the houses of the street. The crackle of the bacon, the hiss of the bread hitting the pan, the radio commentary starting up in the front room, that was the sound of the weekend beginning. We now follow elaborate online tutorials for the perfect bacon sandwich, debate the merits of red sauce versus brown, and film ourselves making them for Instagram. She did it half asleep in a dressing gown at 8:15, and the result was better than any of them. 65 years, and HP sauce has not changed the recipe? Number 7. Sweet tomato and condensed milk sandwich. This is the one that sounds wrong on the page. Sliced tomato laid on buttered white bread, a thin layer of sweetened condensed milk spread across the top of the tomato, salt and pepper cracked over the lot. Nigella Lawson wrote about her own grandmother making these in her column for The Observer and called the combination extraordinary. Every northern nan from Newcastle to Liverpool to Hull knew this trick, and oral histories collected by the Working Class Movement Library in Salford record dozens of women who made them through the 50s and 60s. The cold sweetness of the milk against the acid of the tomato created a flavor that sounds impossible until you bite into one. The salt is what makes it work. Without the salt, it collapses into something cloying. With the salt, it tastes like nothing else on earth. We now call combinations like this molecular gastronomy and pay £22 for a tasting menu that tries to recreate the principle. She did it on a Tuesday afternoon for the grandchildren and never wrote it down. Most modern food writers refuse to believe it until they take the bite. Then they go quiet. Number 6. Jam and bread pudding sandwich. A slab of cold leftover bread pudding made from yesterday's stale loaves with currants, suet, mixed spice, and a beaten egg, baked in a square tin until the top went dark and crisp, wedged between 2 fresh slices of buttered white bread. A pudding inside a sandwich, eaten as Sunday tea with a pot of strong brew on the table and the grandfather clock ticking in the hall. Bread pudding recipes in Mrs. Beeton's Everyday Cookery. The 1949 edition specifically recommended saving the leftovers to be eaten cold with bread the following day. The dense, fruited slab against the soft, fresh bread was a contrast of textures that no chef would dare put on a menu today. This was thrift folded inside, thrift folded inside thrift. 3 uses of the same loaf in 3 days, and a lunch that filled a working man right through until supper at 7. We now buy bread pudding in a clear plastic clamshell at Marks and Spencer for £3.20 and eat it from the packet on the train. She baked it in a tin and made it last the week. It was an entire economic philosophy in one slice. Number 5. Mushy peas and mint sandwich. Marrow-fat peas soaked overnight in a basin with a pinch of bicarbonate of soda to soften the skins, simmered the next morning until they collapsed into a thick green paste, mixed with chopped fresh mint pulled from the patch by the back step, spread thick on buttered white bread, eaten cold the next day with a heavy crack of black pepper. A bag of dried marrow fats cost 4p at the co-op in 1958 and fed a family of 6 for 2 days running. The bright mint cut through the earthy peas in a way that no amount of pesto ever managed in any kitchen anywhere since. She made them for the cricket pavilion teas in summer, packed in a tin with a square of greaseproof on top, the green showing through where the bread had absorbed the color. We now pay £6 for a pea and mint salad in a glass-fronted cafe in town and call it seasonal. She had it on the table for 4p and called it Wednesday. The mint patch in the back garden produced for 40 years and never once asked for fertilizer. There is a thread running through every single sandwich on this list. None of these required a recipe, none required precise measurements. They required a hand that knew how thick to slice, how heavy to salt, how much vinegar to splash, how long to leave the sugar before pressing the top slice down. That knowledge did not live in a book. It lived in her hands, transferred from her own mother's hands, going back 4 generations. Number 4. Sardine and lemon on toast. Tinned sardines in oil, drained briefly on a saucer, mashed with a fork onto hot buttered toast, finished with a hard squeeze of lemon and a heavy grind of black pepper. Sardines cost 7p a tin at the corner shop in 1955, and the British Seafish Industry Authority's nutrition surveys of the period rated them as the most affordable source of omega-3 oils available to working households. The oil from the tin soaked into the toast immediately, and the lemon lifted the whole thing into something that tasted French rather than wartime. She made them for herself when the children were grown and the house was quiet, the kitchen radio on low, the paper folded on the table. We now microwave pre-cooked salmon fillets from a foil pouch and choke down fish oil capsules with a glass of water, hoping to do what 1 tin of sardines did better. The supplement industry has built itself on the silence of an empty larder. 7p in 1955, £30 today. She was right the whole time. Number 3. Cucumber and salt on white bread. Paper-thin cucumber sliced with a sharp knife on a wooden board. Sea salt cracked over the slices on a plate. White pepper, soft white bread with cold butter cut into squares. Nothing else, nothing more. The cucumber's cell walls broke down under the salt within 20 minutes and released a clean green water that soaked into the bread and turned it slightly translucent at the edges. This was the sandwich that turned up at funerals, christenings, and Sunday teas across Britain for 50 years from 1920 onwards, recorded in Women's Institute tea books from Devon to Inverness. She arranged them on the good Wedgwood plate, crusts off, cut into 4 perfect triangles, covered with a damp tea towel until the guests arrived at 3. We now follow elaborate cucumber sandwich tutorials online, debate the precise butter ratio, watch 15-minute videos on knife technique. She made them by feel for 60 years and never once dropped a slice. It tasted of being cared for, not of money. Number 2. Bread, butter, and brown sugar. 2 slices of fresh white bread, salted butter spread to the crusts in a thick, even layer, with the broad knife, dark muscovado sugar pressed into the butter with the back of a spoon until the granules half dissolved and went slightly wet. Cut into 4 neat triangles, served on the good plate with a paper doily, alongside milky tea in the proper cup with a saucer. The dark brown sugar against the pale yellow butter against the white bread looked, on the plate, like a painting in 3 earth tones. The Bristol Oral History Project recorded over 200 women born between 1920 and 1945, mentioning this exact sandwich as the one their mothers made for them after a bad day at school. It was the one she made when you came in crying because the teacher had been sharp or because the children had been worse. We now pay £7 for an artisan sea salt caramel pastry from a bakery on a tiled wall in Shoreditch. She did the same job for less than a penny per child, and the sugar dissolving slowly into the butter was a kind of medicine no chemist ever bottled. Sweetness as comfort, comfort as care. Care is the only thing she had that cost nothing. Number 1. Bread and butter, cut thin. A fresh white loaf, cold salted butter, sliced into thin curls with the broad knife rather than spread. The bread itself cut so thin you could almost see through it against the kitchen window. No filling, no jam, no juice, no cheese. just bread and butter, arranged in overlapping triangles on the best plate with a paper doily underneath, served with tea from the proper pot. The Mass Observation Archive at the University of Sussex holds dozens of testimonies from women born in the 1910s describing this exact sandwich as the one made for visiting children. Every grandmother in Britain made it. Every one of those children remembers the exact taste. The cold snap of the butter against the soft give of the bread, the salt landing after the swallow. We now call thin-cut bread and butter an old-fashioned afternoon tea curiosity. Served at hotels in Mayfair to tourists, she did it for the price of a thin slice. This was not a sandwich because there was nothing else to give. It was a sandwich made deliberately by hands that had nothing left to spend except patience and time. Not poverty, not making do, not nostalgia. Attention, the most expensive thing in the world given freely on a doily with a cup of tea. Try one of these this week. Make a sugar sandwich for a child after school, a chip butty with last night's leftovers, or a thin slice of bread and butter for someone who needs cheering up. Tell us in the comments which sandwich your nan made for you. She did not call it cuisine, she called it lunch.